Hey guys, welcome to the GameTouch controller update for version 10. This has been focused on a full rework of the backend to allow the full customization and sharing of profiles with friends, ability to have macros within the commands, and also to assist in the functionality for portrait modes and toggle buttons. The video is chapterized within the description below, so if you're already familiar with some of the things that I'm covering off on, you can skip ahead chapters and move to the things that are new and more focused on the update. First thing I'm going to cover off on is just a rehash of the installation process. If you go to www.gametouchcontroller.com, up the top there'll be a downloads button. You can click that. That will take you to the download section. If you scroll down to release builds, you'll see that there's a download for the server as an installer, and there's also a self-extracting zip file. That's for if the server installer doesn't work for you. When you run the self-extracting zip, next to this orange writing here is the path which it would install into by default, and then you'll need to go into the dist folder and create a shortcut to the GameTouch server executable on your desktop or wherever you want to put the shortcut. And the same is true for the Windows client if you're using something like a Microsoft Surface or a Windows client. Once you've got the server installed on your gaming PC and the client installed on either your tablet or your other device, when you first run the server on your PC, you'll see it on the right hand side of the screen over here. This is what we'll come up with. And when you first push the power button, which is the big looking power button there, it will turn green and you will get a prompt from Windows to allow the public and private networks access to this app. You can click a little show more button and it will expand out to show you this image. And if you're not sure which network you have, you can either select both public and private networks if you're not sure, or just select the specific network that applies to your network that you're on right now, and then hit allow. You'll notice that the server transitions to the screen here where you'll see messages and which clients are connected. If you want to confirm which address the server started on, you can use the back arrow in the bottom right corner to go back, and it will say it in the IP address here. On the client, the first time you start it, which you'll see over on the left, you'll get a list of patch notes, which you can scroll down to see most of the new changes. And then when you're finished having a read, you can close that, and it should just be as simple as pushing the power button. If you're on the same network, it should find the server and connect. You'll notice that the server automatically transitions to the second screen once it's connected. And if you go back, you'll be able to see which IP address that the server started on. Then on the client, you should be able to just simply hit the connect button and it will connect to the server. If you're using the Windows client, you're required to have an Android, iOS, or like Amazon client connected first to authenticate your Windows client. And if you've got that client already connected and it's on the same time zone and network as the server, when you connect your Windows client, it will authenticate and connect. For the other clients, it's just as simple as connecting. You can confirm which clients you have connected on that second screen of the server, and you'll see them listed down here. I have the bottom one, which is my phone and used for authentication, and then the next one up is the Windows client that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. If you're using the Windows client, once it's authenticated, you're free to disconnect your phone or tablet, etc. that you use to authenticate it with. You'll see on the server here, you'll see a button that says Open Twitch Chat to help you configure your Twitch settings, and another turret section over here. I cover these in other videos, so I won't cover them now, and they're not required for normal operation. Same on the new front panel, as you can see, the new UI design here, the Twitch Connect settings here, and the focus commands to application. You don't need to use those, and they're covered in another video. Real quickly, I'll cover off on what's changed in the client. You'll notice immediately there's some UI changes here, and you'll also notice that the on connect go to doesn't have a big list anymore, and it just includes profiles that you have created, which we'll get into in a minute. I've removed the general purpose and space sim options from here, and you just live with the away from keyboard and gamepad because you now create those options within the custom screens. There's the addition of a file manager, which is used to delete your custom assets and sync your profiles to the server for sharing. One other thing that's been changed is the load times have been significantly improved, and you also get a loading bar now, which you'll see in a minute when profiles are being loaded. As a note, the profiles that you may have previously created are not compatible with this version, given the rebuild of the backend entirely. But it should allow you to edit and make new profiles a lot easier. On the Windows client now, when you rescale the client, it will show you the resolution of the window. So if you're going to make profiles on your computer and then transfer them to your device, which I suggest is the easiest way to do that, you can set the window size to the exact size of your client to be able to make the profiles fit exactly. Pretty much every element will automatically scale, especially in landscape mode, but this will be able to make it exactly the way you want it. On the server side, again, the UI has been changed a bit for newer looking button designs. And if you go into the file manager section, this is where you can open now the GameTouch folders by clicking on either the open import or export folder, and then manage the files for importing and exporting. So what we'll go through now is just a quick look at the new Space Sim profiles that have been added into this version. They're set up for 3.23. So now when we want to move to either Space Sim or what used to be the general section, we can use our custom screens drop down here, and you'll see the three profiles which are included with the application: General, Space Sim, and Space Sim Classic, using the more old school style buttons, which might be better for screens that are dimmer. First thing we'll do is quickly show a look at the General screen. So we'll load that up. This General profile can be overwritten, so you can edit the stuff in there and change it in order to make your own. However, the Space Sim and Space Sim Classic profiles will ask you to save it as a new when you select them. So you'll see you get that little loading bar now, and this brings us to what would be something that you might make as an example screen for general stuff. So I've included three panels here as examples. There's just some included buttons that are in when you go to create buttons. There's more of a like metallic, I suppose, Drake looking feel. You can see we've got toggle buttons here, and they will all toggle depending on how they're set up. Joystick, and then just a different looking one on the back here. Quick overview of the new Space Sim profiles now. You see when we go to hit load, it'll ask us to save it as something new. We can pick a name for it, hit save, it will then load, and as you can see, again, it's a lot faster than it used to be. And this is now what the new Space Sim profiles look like by default. Again, by default, the Space Sims profile is set up for 323 Star Citizen. And then a quick look at the Classic. And you can see it's just got the more classical looking buttons for ease of visibility on some dimmer devices, etc. You'll see now the two that we've created are in here, our SC Classic and Star Citizen, as well as the two that we can't overwrite. So anytime you try and load these two, it will ask you to save it as new. But now if we want to go back to the ones that we created, it's a simple click, and since it's already loaded, it will immediately go into it. We can now go back to our onConnect GoTo, and it will show us the editable profiles that we've created in order to start on Connect. So if we were to select that and we were to disconnect and then reconnect, it will immediately go to that profile. So now we've had a quick look at the included profiles. I'm going to quickly touch on adding and modifying your own custom buttons. So when we go to custom screens, we can see we have create new here. We do that and we make a new name for it. Let's just call it new game, and hit create, and it will immediately create us with a blank profile, what it looks like here. This is the main screen, and then to edit it, up in the top right, there's a little gear button. You'll push that, and it will change to an X, and over on the left-hand side, you'll see you'll get a little pop-out arrow. We can push that to slide out our options to add. We can change our background. There's a few included by default. There's a grid included to help you do alignment. So if you set your background as grid initially to do your alignment, and then you can pick another one. Let's just pick this. We got metal background. We'll just use the glow one for this. And then again, there's a couple of included overlays, simple overlays, and then there's like a metal one, metal toothed in. So let's just use that. So now we have a background and an overlay. We can then customize the colors in here. The first one's not used for backgrounds. So let's make the background like a blue kind of glow, a bit brighter. And then the overlay, it looks dim here, and that'll brighten back up when you finish editing. So let's give it a bit of a, little bit of a yellow sort of tinge. We hit set here, and over on the left, you'll notice that you have palettes that you can save. So if you want to apply this same background color to every panel that you create, you can save our palette. Let's call it background. Save that. Close, and now you'll see that our background looks like that blue tinge and then the yellow tinge over the actual image. Now, on the main screen, which is the first one you create, this is where you'll create subpanels. So when you go add element, you'll only have panel button. And then within the panel button, you can give it a name. The name's important because it allows you to automatically transition to this screen by selecting another button on the created subpanels. So let's just call this panel 1 for the purposes of this. And now you have the options down here, the transition screen to either be new or cinematics. The cinematics is still a bespoke panel. So if you want to link to the cinematics panel, that's where you select that, but we'll just leave it at new for now. We can adjust the width of the button, the height. We can adjust the font size, and then the icon size. So let's give it an icon. Let's call it the flight panel icon. Let's bring the font down to a size where we can sort of see it. And you'll notice here that there's an align button. Pushing that aligns the font to different places. And if you can't get it exact, so let's say we want it to be a bit lower but not right at the bottom, one thing you can do is set it to the middle and then just put a couple of returns above it to bring it down. We can change the actual button itself. So there's included a whole bunch of different button styles that you can use. Let's just go with that one for now. Yeah, let's use that. We'll make the font a little bit smaller. There, perfect. We can change the font type. There's a few included fonts. And we can also change the colors. So you can change the text, the background, the icon color. Set those. Let's say we make it let's just make them all green. Make a different type of green. Let's go with that. Make the text a little brighter. And let's make the icon like very green. Now let's save that palette and we'll call that our button palette. Let's call it button green. Save. Set. Close. Now we've got our button set up the way we want it. We just hit add. And you'll notice right down the bottom here, if you forget how to do things, there is a help pop-up that you can scroll through and it gives you a bit of tips. Down the bottom, you also have the ability to save style, which will save everything about this button except for the icon. So let's save this again and we'll call this our panel button style and we'll save that. We add it, close. Oh, we added 2. That's good because to remove a button, whilst we're in the edit mode and we're not moving it, you simply click it, hit delete, confirm, and that button is deleted. And you're free to click and drag and move these around. You'll notice that it looks like it's in front of the overlay. As soon as you reselect the overlay, it will put it back in behind it. Now, if you want to add another button, for example, we'll see when we add the element, we get our default. We want to add another panel button exactly the same. We can come over to our style that we saved, choose panel button. Let's just name it FPS. We'll give it our FPS panel thing, and we'll add that, close, and now we have an FPS one as well. And that's as simple as that, and you can keep creating those. And if you want to make heaps of the same, one way you can do it rather than add and you go back in and add and select style, there's two ways to do it. One, you can add another panel button, load the style, and then hit add, and it will create a whole bunch of buttons, etc. Or if we didn't have that and we just want to use this one as a reference, we can click that, hit delete, and then before we change anything, we can add it back in, so it adds it back in, and then again we can add, and add a whole bunch of them, which we can then edit afterwards if we just want to get our layout correct. There is a snap on here on the top left that turns snapping to grid on and off, so you can fully align it exactly how you want to, versus snap on, which is, you know, a relative position. Once you've added your panel buttons, these all now correspond to specific sub panels. And to avoid confusion, we'll just quickly get rid of these extra ones. Once we finish editing, we hit the close button, which will bring this back across here. Whilst it's collapsed and we're still in edit mode, we're free to move things around if we want to put them up the top here. And then once we're done, we can close, and you'll see that the overlay becomes bright again, and we can go into our respective panels. So that's its own panel, and that's its own panel. So let's go into this one. Do the edit the same up in the top right hand corner here. Pop out our slider. Let's choose a background. This is going to be our FPS, and just to make it obvious, we'll just use the grid. Every time you close this so that you're outside of edit mode like this, that saves your profile. So now if we go back, we can see FPS is still our blank, and panel 1 is where we started, and it looks like this. The options that you get here for snap, colors, overlay, and background, they're all the same as the main screen. However, now you're in the sub panel, you have a whole bunch of options to add features. So we can add buttons, and now the buttons that you can add have a whole lot more options. So we'll go through a more complex button to make it easy. Let's call it, actually we'll do a simple one first. Let's just call it jump. Again, we have the same options for button styles, fonts, icons, etc. So we'll just make this a very quick one. Let's use this HD Helldivers colored type button, and we'll make our font this one. Okay, we're just going to use that for now. Change a couple of colors, and we're going to use our standard button green that we created. All right, now once we have our button, you'll see up here you have type and press and on button. These are toggle buttons, so the types are down, up, and on press. So that's the equivalent of you press a button, which is a down and then up, like you would normally push a key. Down is just pushing the key down, and up is just releasing the key. So for jump, there's a couple of ways we can make jump. We can make it on button press, which means when you push it down, that's when the command will go to the server. Or you can make it on button release, which means when you let go, that's when the button will go to the server. I usually set all the default ones onto release, so if you decide you change your mind, you can move your finger off and not send the command. But it's up to you. Press will be essentially a bit more responsive because it's as soon as you push it. Now if we want to make jump, we have to put, we can't obviously enter a space in like this as the command. So for things that have multiple letters in their command and not a single letter, like F for example, down in the help section, we can see the command, which is what is executed, and then there's modify keys and multi-character keys. In this multi-character keys, you'll see what has to be entered for things like space. And we can see space over here is just we type in space. So the command we want is space, and we just want it to be a press, and we'll have it on release, and then we simply add it. And then on button release, it will send press space to the server. Okay, then we add that command, and now we have that button on our screen. If we want to edit it, when you click and hold and move, it'll allow you to move it. It won't go into the edit screen. If you just push it, it'll go back into the edit screen, and we can see we have our on button release, press space. If we made a mistake, we can hit clear command and empty that, but we want that back. If we don't save it, close, and you'll see it's still there. Now if we clear the command and save it, you'll see that that command's gone. We'll put it back in for now. Yep, press on release, add that, save, close. Alright, now let's add another button, and we'll make this one a bit more complex. So we can go through the creation of a macro and a toggle button at the same time. So let's call this one lights. And we want this to turn our lights on when we press the button, and also turn our lights off at the same button when we release it. So we only want to push, we want to press, and our command will be L, and we want that on press, and we also want that on release, so we'll add that in as well. So we want it to be a toggle button, so let's change it over here at button type to toggle. Button type toggle will not work if there is not a release and press command for the button. It won't send the command. Alright, so that's our toggle button. Let's make it one of the included toggle button types. Not that one, let's use this one. And let's change the width so it looks more naturally sized. We don't really want lights to sit in there, right? But we need to give it a name, because when we toggle the button on, it will look at every other connected GTC device and toggle any button with the same name. But we don't want it to look like that. So what we can do is we can go into colors, and we can turn the alpha of our text down to 0 and set that. That way it still has a button name, but it has no text that's visible. We have our on press, on release, set to toggle. Now if we add that, we now have a toggle button to turn lights on and off. Now one feature with the toggle buttons, which I'll cover off on while we're doing buttons, is because there's an on press command and an on release command, the way this works is it sends an actual state. It's not a swap to another state, it's force a specific state. So if in Star Citizen you can have different commands, or in any game, for an on and an off, you'll be able to set two different commands for the on release and the on press to match those. So let's say, for example, in your configuration in the game, you can set a different button for lights on and a different button for lights off. So we'll clear our command, and on button press we'll push L, because that would be what lights on is. And then let's say lights off is actually Alt L. So the first thing we want to do is push down Alt left, and if we can't remember what left Alt is, you can go down our little help section here to remember what to type in. So we want to push that down, and then we want to give it a delay of 25 milliseconds, because that's what's required for using modifiers. So we'll add the delay in. Then we want to use a press of L, and then we wanted to release our left Alt, which is Alt left. And we want to save that. So now, when I push this button, it will send L as a press, and when I turn it off, it will send Alt L as a press. And every command that's labeled lights on every other GTC device will do the exact same thing, so they can't get mixed states, and also the game state won't be mixed. So if the game states allows a different on button to an off button, that is my suggestion until we get an API. Alright, there's a couple of niche commands within the buttons. So let's add a new button We'll just make it sure. Let's just make it the normal standard button. We'll call it AFK because we want that to be the case. Let's also take away its text color and give it an icon. We've got a couple of different AFK icons in here. Let's use that one. Sure, that's fine. We make this one a toggle as well. And now if we want to make a shortcut to turning the AFK feature on and off, all we simply do is set the command as AFK for both press and release and add that. Now this will toggle on and off your AFK feature based on the settings that you created in your AFK. So back in here where we go into AFK, these commands that are set and also the duration here is what will activate, and we can test that, and it will also activate on every other GameTouch device that you have, so you can turn it on any other GameTouch device that you have connected. So our new game that we're creating, we'll go back in there, we'll go back into our panel 1, and I'll turn that on, and we'll go back really quickly to our AFK section, and you can see that the time is running and when the next input is. And that will turn it off. The next bespoke button that you can make is a clock. If you make the button name clock and then hit add, you'll notice that we now have a clock, but let's say we want to make it a little bit cleaner. Let's go in and edit it. Let's make the button type actually none, so there's no button look. We'll change the width and our font. Okay, so we can increase our font, manipulate our box so that we just get the time that fits, and then take away our background. Now if we save that and close, we have a clock that we can move around. It doesn't have a command, so it won't do anything, but it's there. So that's the other bespoke command that you have. So just really quickly, one of the last thing we could do with the buttons is we can make it be like a traditional button. So if we were to add a button, and let's just call it boost, and we want it to just push down when we push down, and push up when we push up. So we can put down on press, and let's make it shift left, and then up on release, and add that. Now this button will be down when I hold it down, and up when I hold it up. Alright, so we'll go into now some of the other things we can add. But first we'll create another button very quickly. We won't give it a command or anything, but we'll see if we open up our transition screens here, we have the options of the different screens that we've created as well as previous, so you can make a back button if you want to. So we made this other panel and we called it panel 1. Sorry, our FPS panel. We'll just call that FPS. Add that. Now if we had a command, it would also execute the command before transitioning to the screen, but we didn't give it a command for the purposes of this. And now if we push that button, it will take us to our other screen that we've created. And that's how it works with the standard Space Sim included profiles for things like leave seat and flight ready. Now we'll go through the other elements. You can add a chat widget. There's an activate button, a send button, and a close button. The activate button is which button you push to actually open the chat window, which by default is enter. The send button is which sends a message, which is also by default enter. And then a close button, if there is one, by default is enter. And so, for example, we want to make a console command for something like Star Citizen. Our activate button would be tilde, our send button would be enter, and then we need another tilde for our close button. And the message that we want is one to actually show us our statistics. And then if you push assign message, it will assign that command and this button set to that automated message. And we want to turn it off too. Let's make it the second button, which these are the two that are used in the comms window by default. And if we just make this enter now, and this is also enter, and we want another message to be like, hi guys, how's everyone going? And let's add that to the third one. Again, we can change the style, buttons, fonts, etc. We can use our panel button style that we saved. It's the only one we've saved so far. We can go through, change the button types to whichever button type that we like. That's oh, that's horrible. Let's use that just for the purposes of this. Change our font. We don't want an icon. We'll just leave the colors based off our style, and then you can also scale how big you want it. And most things have this scale option. Then we hit add, and we can click one of these buttons to drag it around and move it to wherever we want. We'll put our background on grid down just to make it easier. The next one is the cinema slide. This is the slide that pops out in the current version to allow you access to the shortcut of your cameras, etc. from the cinematics panel. It's a bit of a Star Citizen bespoke thing. And again, you can customize these things, a different open button that you want to use, the fonts, and the type of button, etc., the background, and add that. This one you can't move out because it's closed, but this move edit button here that pops up above it allows you to slide it up and down to be kind of wherever you want it to be on the screen. And then once you're not there, you'll see it pops out with the different buttons. The next one is the old standard power triangle. You can customize these. We'll go into like how to customize and add your own elements in a different video. There's a couple included. There's a default and a test one that I had. And then these are the commands that correspond to the reset, weapons, shields, and engines within the game, and also your max value if you want it to be 100% or 80%. And again, you can scale the width and height of this to make a very big one if you just want an entire screen that's a power triangle. And you can also change its colors, etc. And so now we have this giant power triangle. Again, any GTC device connected that has a power triangle on any screen in any position will replicate any changes you make on this one. So if I was to, for example, go back to my first one, add another power triangle in here. Sure, just make it really tiny for the purposes of this, and add that in. We've done that. If we go to FPS panel, you'll see it's replicated there. The next one is the radar slider. Again, this is the button. I think the new one by default is tab, so you can put your little tab in there. If you can't remember, again, there's the help section down the bottom right. Again, you can change the colors and the scale to be as big as small as you want. Add that, and we've got a giant radar slider in here that you can turn on and off. Again, any screen and or device that has this on there will change to this when you turn it on and off. Oops. The next element is again the salvage slider. It's a bit of a bespoke Star Citizen image. Again, you can scale it, colors, etc. Up in the top, any VJoy type system, which this is the first one we've covered, the salvage slider, you select a specific axis of the VJoy device that you want that to use. Right, so you want it to use slider 0, we set SL0, and we can add that and move it around by the reset button. Triangle moves around by the center button, and the radar moves around by the actual radar bizzo. Okay, this is getting busy, so what we'll do real quick is just really quick make a new button here. Because we've done that, that created a new panel. Alright, where do we get to server slider? Alright, the SCM slider. Again, you can change the scale, etc., the colors, and then which axis you want it to be on the VJoy. Again, add, move with the reset. The difference with the SCM slider now is it defaults to the 0 middle because of the changes to master mode, etc. It's no longer set as logarithmic, so it won't probably match as exact as the old version used to be with a single SCM scale. But again, you can change the reset point by moving the marker, pushing and holding reset, and it will move that to the reset point. I think they mostly look like they're up here now. And then these two little arrows are your preset default values, if you want preset default values for things like landing and takeoff. And you can move those. Let's say I want one here, move the marker to there, push and hold the lower triangle, and it will set that lower triangle default value. And then same for the top one. Etc. Shield faces, again, the image here that corresponds to the left, right, forward, back, and then up and down shields, of which there isn't any in the game yet, but that's what these correspond to by default. Once again, you can scale it width and height, and like the other sort of functions, this will translate any pushes you make on these to everything else, every other screen and device that has these connected to it. I have to change that. It's over the thing. Alright, just going to delete this to get it off the screen, and we'll add another element. The VJoy pad. This is essentially like a joystick that you can move around. There's options here for sticky and auto reset. Sticky means like if you move it over to here, it will stay there, and auto reset will automatically reset to the middle. So if I leave it at sticky, I can select a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. I mean, typically it's going to be X and Y. And then a joypad image, so you can create your own different sort of joysticks. And if you want to move it around, you just a little move button there, you can move it around to wherever. You see we left it sticky, so it sort of stays in the value that it was in. If we were to edit that and make it auto reset, then we can also change the scale, save. Now it'll automatically recenter the joystick. Put that over there. And the last one is a VJoy slider. There's options for different orientations and different types. So there's the 0 to 100 slider, which resets to 0. There's the right 50-50, which resets to the center. The left 50-50 and the left 0 to 100, which rotate by clicking this button here. You can add your own custom imagery for that. I've got a couple included. There's a white one. There's one that has some blue by default, and then the default one. And then again, you can change the colors and also the scale. Also, there's you choose the axis for it. So that covers off on all the different types of elements that you can currently add. I'll continue to iterate on those and add more elements and things to these. And that pretty much covers how to create your own kind of custom panels. So now we've covered custom panels, let's go about how we add custom elements and share those profiles that we've created with our friends. So on the left hand side you can see I've got the client up the top here on the second page, I've got the server here on the main page, and then over on the right here I've just got a folder with some imagery that I've made for the purposes of this test. Now on the server, if we go into File Manager now, we'll have our Open Import and Export folder. We can use either of these two to get to the actual server folder itself. So I'll just use the Export folder and I'll just go up one level to the GameTouch server. And then I can add my custom imagery to the respective folders. So I've got a background, so I'm going to add that into the custom backgrounds folder. I've got an overlay, I'll add that into the custom overlays folder. And I have two button images, the underscore down and the underscore up. When you make buttons, they need to have a down and an up, denoted by the last part being underscore down and underscore up. And the only format for all of the elements is PNG. So I'll drag those two into the custom buttons. And now that we've done that, we can go to our client, go to the file manager, and we have an option to sync custom assets. What sync custom assets will do, it will look at all the assets you already have on your tablet, and then look at the server and tell the server only to send files that you don't already have. It will then, once that's completed, push the profiles that you have on your tablet back to the server. It won't do overwriting for grabbing assets. So if you already had, for example, two buttons of the same name on your client that you've already had, it won't grab those from the server. However, it will overwrite the server if it has the same profile names. So the most up-to-date profile will be coming from your client. So we'll do that now, and we can see it's receiving the EQNX background and also the overlay. And that will be sync complete. Now we've got our new custom assets, so let's make a new screen. We'll call it Equinox. Create, and we have our blank template to start with again. Now let's add a button. And we should have received Equinox buttons from the server when we synced it. Let's change the height so it looks a little bit more natural. Let's call it Equinox and change the alpha of the font. And let's add that. So now we have a button to what we're going to have as our Equinox panel. We'll go there and we'll add our custom background that we brought across, which is our Equinox background, and then our overlay that we sent across. Let's add a button for good measure. Now we won't give it a command. Oh, that's very big. And now we have essentially created a entirely new custom profile with our custom assets. Now we want to share this with our friends. So if we go back to our file manager again, and we sync our custom assets, it won't get any files because we have everything, but it's just going to push our files back to the server to make sure that we overwrite the server with all of our brand new files. Once it's done, now we've pushed our profiles back to the server, which already has the assets that we put in there, and now we want to share that with our friends. We can open our export folder, and if we go into our files, we'll see a list of all the profiles that are now on the server ready for export. We select Equinox, which is one we just made, hit build export zip, and you'll see you'll now get a profile zip inside that export folder. Now, if I wanted to import that into someone else's client, we just share that with them, give it to them, and then on their server, they can open their import folder, just drop the zip file into their import folder, and then select the file that's in their import folder now that there's one there, and import the profile. The profile will then be imported, and we can test that this is working. What we'll do is we'll go to our server, go to our custom buttons, and let's delete the buttons that we put in here, and also our background, and also our overlay. So now this is as if we have a server that doesn't have this profile imported. Now if we hit import, and we go and check our buttons now, we'll see that our buttons are back, and so is our background, and so is our overlay. So then if we were to do our sync custom assets again on our client, so let's delete our buttons, which were the Equinox button, and our Equinox up, our background, and also the overlay. When we receive our assets, we see it will receive the assets back from the server, and then when we go into, once it's finished doing that, we'll also have the Equinox profile, and we can go and load that back up. Well guys, that covers pretty much most of the significant changes in the version 10 update. I know it was a long time coming. There's a significant amount of work to do in the back end to make the macros workable, and also the complete rework of how profiles are created and saved, as well as widgets. So I hope you enjoy and have fun. Stay safe.